Hey everybody, it's Mattie here with Altcoin Buzz. Happy Saturday. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. So we've had another dose here of attempted FUD in the form of what JP Morgan had to say. And I call it attempted FUD because I don't really think it's had much of an impact, at least at the time of this recording. Things can always change, as we know, in this space. I'm talking about what JP Morgan had to say about the price of Bitcoin. It doesn't really seem like it's had much of an impact on the price, and it kind of relates to what I said the other day. We'll come back to this story in a moment, but let's take a look at the market. We're actually up a little bit, 1.4% over the course of the last day, which is, whatever, insignificant. Let's call that insignificant. But the point is that we haven't retraced. And as I mentioned the other day, I think we're getting stronger and stronger when it comes to these, whether they're just straight up negative press releases or attempted FUD attacks. But we're inoculated against this bad news in a way that it's kind of no longer affecting price action. Look what happened with the ETF. I'm still waiting for the fallout, and we just haven't seen it. So Bitcoin has seen brighter days for sure, but it's still sitting at just below 3,600. And this most recent news by JP Morgan, again, caveat, at the time of this recording, doesn't seem to have made much of an impact. So let's check out the tweet here that Altcoin Buzz IO put out. JP Morgan says Bitcoin only makes sense in a dystopian scenario because being used for payments will stay, quote, challenged, and no major retailers accepted such assets in 2018. This is like saying, in our opinion, in the 1990s, the entire use case of the internet is email. JP Morgan has a point that retailer adoption hasn't exactly exploded yet, but that's a point that we're ready and willing to concede. It's like, yeah, of course it hasn't exploded yet. That's why the potential is all ahead of us. So let's take a look at that story directly on news.bitcoin.com. JP Morgan, Bitcoin would only make sense in a dystopian scenario. JP Morgan has continued to bash Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, saying the value of them is still unproven, and that it will be at least another 3 to 5 years before blockchain technology makes a significant difference in the banking sector. Well, load up during those 3 to 5 years then, even if that is true. Even if what they're saying is 100% true, which I disagree with, I'm not saying it is, but even if it were, hypothetically, well, there's your red carpet toward investment success, according to JP Morgan. Good job, guys. So a dystopian scenario. America's largest bank has reaffirmed that it is still skeptical of cryptocurrencies. I wonder why. Do you think maybe cryptocurrencies threaten the use case of America's largest bank? JP Morgan said that such assets would only be of any value in a dystopian scenario where investors lose faith in gold, which many of them have, by the way. The precious metals markets are very manipulated in the opinions of many investors. So where investors lose faith in gold, the dollar, and the global payments system, according to Reuters. Even in extreme scenarios such as a recession or financial crises, there are more liquid and less complicated instruments for transacting, investing, and hedging. This is a quote by the bank itself. So they said that it would still be years until blockchain technology catches on, yada, yada, yada. Financial institutions aren't ready for it yet. We've all heard that same speech before. I think the point that Reuters makes here is a little bit more fair to address here. So they're saying that pension funds and asset managers have stayed clear so far. Yeah, that's for a good reason. I would not advise a pensioner to base their entire portfolio on something like cryptocurrency with the volatility that we're currently seeing. So it actually makes sense, in my opinion, that they've stayed away for those particular reasons. Despite this, people still worry about the volatility of cryptocurrencies, security flaws, and digital assets being used for illegal purposes, such as money laundering or buying illicit goods. Because nobody in the history of the economy has ever bought illicit goods with cash, right? Wink, wink. JP Morgan added in its report that cryptocurrencies being used for payments will stay, quote, challenged, and that no major retailers accepted such assets in 2018, though marketplaces where small businesses have control over payment methods would be fruitful in the future for the spread of cryptocurrencies. So they also talked about how Bitcoin would be less than the cost of mining it. Here's a quote that speaks to that. The drop in Bitcoin prices from around 6,500 throughout much of October to below 4,000 now have increasingly pushed margins further and further negative for just about every region except low-cost Chinese miners. You guys know my opinion about that as far as mining goes. The market has to recalibrate itself. A equilibrium point will be found. Nobody's going to continue producing Bitcoin if it is disadvantageous for them to do so from a fiscal perspective. So that's just a matter of rejigging and rebalancing, at least in my opinion. The market, the free market, the unmanipulated free market will sort that issue out automatically. That's the benefit of being involved in it. So in my opinion, guys, and you can be totally free to disagree with me, but this is JP Morgan trying to put out a press release that is really taking advantage. They're being opportunists. I don't blame them for it, but they're capitalizing on the recent lows and the recent price retracements of Bitcoin. It's totally in their interest to do so. This is a technology that completely threatens everything they've stood for, everything they've built up for the last 100 years. So why would they not get defensive, dig their heels in, and bash crypto? I think I would too. You can read about it here on Reuters as well. Crypto value unproven, blockchain years away from mainstream. This is Reuters' report on the news that JP Morgan put out in their opinions and their press releases. Fortunately for us and for the non-banking elites, there is some positive news that we can point toward that offsets some of the opinions put out there by JP Morgan. We're here on CoinGate.com. Bitcoin fundamentals showing adoption is stronger than ever, and that's according to the Weiss ratings report. So the Weiss report flies in the face of the JP Morgan report. Wouldn't you look at that? Bitcoin fundamentals, Viz hash rate, daily active addresses, transaction volume, average transaction fee, and Lightning Network are defying the price movement as they drive the adoption metric further. So in this latest report, Weiss Ratings says that despite the fact that Bitcoin's price has tanked, its adoption metrics have improved because of 5 fundamental reasons. So first of all, compared to about a year ago, computing power deployed on the Bitcoin network by users all over the world has more than doubled. The hash rate is the best possible measure of network security. The higher it is, the harder it becomes for anyone to mount a 51% attack. It is estimated that to carry out such a massive operation, it would cost hackers about $280,000 per hour. We also have an increase in the number of active daily wallet users over the past 4 years. Quote, in a bear market, this kind of stability is an encouraging sign. And as the author points out, to be fair, the old addresses that are dormant and that really don't get any use anymore, they're never really deleted, so that may not be the most honest metric, but nonetheless, yes, active daily wallet users, that number is increasing. Point number 3, from 2017's peak, Bitcoin's daily transactions have dropped to 135,000, meaning, quote, speculators and weak hands did what they always do. They bailed out. However, despite the bear market, transactions have been increasing steadily to 276,000 per day, and that's in the bear market, importantly. It tells us that once the fever and frenzy were squeezed out of the market, stronger, steadier hands have prevailed and become more active. Meanwhile, the average transaction fees have fallen down to 25 cents when at 2017 at the peak, fees were, quote, often higher than the transaction was worth. In some cases, $20, $25, $30, $35 from what I remember. And finally, now the trending Lightning Network, the second layer on the Bitcoin network to make transactions instant and scalable, is growing quite nicely as well. Quote, more importantly, there's a lot more room to grow with essentially no limit to the Lightning Network's capacity. According to 1ML, network capacity has risen to over 568 Bitcoin and the number of channels to 21,934, while the current count of nodes is 5,646. Not too bad. So those are some pretty convincing reasons. I mean, it's nice to see that kind of stuff despite the bear market. That's, I think, a really, really important context to highlight. You can take a look at Weiss Ratings here and what they had to say. This is their website. We're going to link to this in the description below. If you're more interested on Weiss in particular, they keep talking more and more about cryptocurrency, which has never really been their bread and butter, but they seem to be more vocal about it with every passing day. They have more and more to say, it would seem. And I wanted to leave you guys with a couple of quick news pieces, but we're running a little bit long. I don't think we'll quite have time to get to it. Nonetheless, you may want to check this out from yesterday. Ripple's CEO's prediction, banks to become custodians of cryptocurrency in 2019. More potentially good news if that's something that you want to read about. We'll link to it, of course, in the description below. And there is a lot going on in the space. Another Altcoin Buzz IO tweet. What's up, crypto? You can take a look at all of these updates with ZIL, with Theta, with TRX, Tron, Reddit, ETH Trader, Donuts, DGTX, Nulls, ETN, Tomo, 10X, Neo, Engine, and Waves. There's lots of stuff happening. If maybe one of these projects is your favorite and you're not particularly sure about what's going on, check this quick list here. It's a good indication, at least in my opinion, that there is cause to be enthusiastic, to be motivated about at least some particular projects, the good ones that are out there in the space. If you have some other ones and some other updates that perhaps we have missed, let us know about them in the comments below. And as always, do be sure you're following Altcoin Buzz and Altcoin Buzz News. We're also on Facebook and Instagram and Telegram. Hope we had a little bit of an uplifting day of news for you all. If you'd like to check out our last video, it is available here. If you choose to invest on this Saturday, members of the Altcoin Buzz Army, I wish you only the very best, but enjoy yourselves. Have a wonderful weekend, and we do hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.